Hello, my name is Professor John Benjamin, and this is Game Design at West Virginia Wesleyan College. And today we'll be introducing you to volumes and blueprints. As always, let's start with a new project. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Games, say Next, and why don't we do a first person, and let's call it Blueprint. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about blueprints and volumes. If we go over here to our place actors and look at the volumes, you can see here there's a series of invisible actors that will perform certain actions. So for instance, it could be a blocking volume right here where you prevent characters or players from going to a certain place in your map. Or more commonly, which we'll use today, is a trigger volume. So when you touch that invisible volume, it triggers an action. And you simply would just drag those onto your level and then add blueprints to it. So that brings us to the topic of blueprints. So what are they? Blueprints are how we add functionality to our games. It's essentially the code part of this. Unreal Engine uses a visual coding system that then writes C++ for us. So you can have two types of blueprints. You can have a level blueprint, which is just interacts with the entire level, or you can have a class blueprint, which gives functionality to a particular actor. All right, great. So let's start today by building something. Let's go ahead and build a little building. I'm going to just go ahead and delete this fellow right there. And I'm going to put a little house right here. All right, so just go ahead and drag in a geometry volume. Just go ahead and drag in a box. And let's make it a little bit bigger. So it's at 1. Let's make it, click on the little padlock, and why don't we make it 2. Go ahead and move it up. Seems pretty big. Big enough? Let's make it a little bigger. Let's make it 3. Okay, great. There we go. And just move it up so it's even with the ground there. And let's make it hollow. Go ahead and check hollow for that box. And then let's go ahead and add another box and we'll create a door. So let's click on subtract and drag another box volume out here and move it into that space, and let's make that a little taller. Let's see, let's scale it up. Okay, let's make it 1 by 1 by 3. That looks pretty good. And let's move it up so, oh no, 3 is too big. The box is 3. Let's make it 2, 2. There we are. And we want to move it up so it's just level with the ground, but don't want to see the ground, we want to see the base of the box. So just like that. All right, cool. And now, of course, with all things, let's give these actors a proper name. So here we have our box brush. Let's name that house. Here's our second box brush for -1. I'm going to move that right next to house, and I'm going to call it door. And as per usual, let's go ahead and give it some texture. So remember, I'm going to select one of the elements of house, and then I'm going to come down here to my details panel and say select all adjacent surfaces. You can also say Shift-J, and then go to your content and your starter content and your materials. And go ahead and select a material. I think maybe something a little unusual today. All right, let's try that one. Nice wooden house. Okay, all right. And now, of course, as always, we've got that little rim because of our door. So go ahead and select your door. And if you want for a moment, let's turn it on to additive. Select an element of the door, and then say select all adjacent surfaces, and I'm going to make it that same wood. All right, and then I'll turn it back to select the door here, and change it back to subtractive. So then go back to your starter content and your props this time. And why don't we add a little ceiling lamp? Okay, it's a pretty big room. I made it pretty giant, so I guess I'm going to go ahead and scale that ceiling lamp up a little. Let's make that 2. Yeah, that looks about right now. Okay, great. All right, so it's just a ceiling lamp. It doesn't have any lights in it. So let's go ahead and add a light. All right, so go to your lights, and let's add a point light. All right, we're just going to move it right so it's inside the lamp, so it looks like the lamp's giving off some light. Right about there should be good. All right. Let's take a look at that. Let's just go ahead and hit Alt-P or Command-P in your case. There's our house. And then it's got a nice little light in there. How very nice is that? Great. And if you want, you can kind of decorate it a little bit more, make it a little more comfortable. You can put a chair in there. I think there's a table here. Oh yeah, here's a table. There we go. That feels a little bit more cozy. All right, great. All right, so the next thing we're going to do, we have a light in there. Now we want to set a trigger volume to turn the light on or off. So to do that, let's go to our volumes. And you can scroll down to trigger volume and drag it here. And you can see it's an invisible volume. And we're going to want to make it to cover the house so that when we enter the house at any point, it triggers the light. And so we made the house, I think, 3 by 3 by 3. So let's do the same thing here with our trigger. So I'll make it 3. And then just sort of scale it and center it so it's kind of around the whole house. That looks pretty good. Oh yeah, there, perfect. It's around the whole house. Okay, so now let's add some blueprints so we can add some functionality to this. Because right now, we haven't told it what to do. Nothing really so much is going to happen. So I'm going to go ahead and save, and then I'm going to add a level blueprint. So I'm going to go up to Blueprints and say Open Level Blueprint. Okay, and this is what's called an event graph. You can see the tab right there. And so to navigate your blueprint, you can scroll to zoom in or out, and you can right-click to kind of move left or right. Okay, so we're in our event graph here, but we have the trigger volume selected. What I'd like to do is first select the light. And you can select it by navigating to it, clicking on the point light there. Oh, and let's change its name. I'm going to change the name to room light. Okay, so we can tell the difference between other lights and the level. Okay, so we have our room light selected. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is create a reference to our room light. So how to add different nodes in the event graph? It's just to go ahead and right-click. And right off the bat, because we have our room light selected, we have some options right here at the top, which is divided by this nice little rule. These are some general actions that we can add, and here's some that are specific to our light since we have it selected. So we're going to create a reference to the room light. And there we have it. I'm going to zoom in, and there's our first node. Now we can add properties and actions to this actor. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is right-click in here and make sure that you have context sensitive unchecked. And I'm going to go ahead and say Set Visibility. All right, now we have movie scene, rendering, and widget. So we want to set visibility for rendering. Okay, and so here we have it. There's our node. All right, so here's a node, and these are called pins, and the pins allow connections between nodes. You have input pins on the left and output pins on the right, and these special pins here are called execution pins. So the very first thing we're going to do is we're going to connect 2 pins from the room light to the target. So you can just go ahead and click on this outgoing pin and connect it there. All right, and occasionally, if necessary, there'll be a conversion node that will automatically be created. Okay, so now this node is going to set the visibility. And notice too, it's blue, and it has the symbol for function. So this is a function node. And this is going to say whether or not the light is on or off. So what we want to have happen is a couple of things. We want to enter the room and have the trigger set off the light. All right, so before we do that, so we need to have nodes for on and off. So I'm going to go ahead and lasso select this group, and I'm going to just go ahead and Control-C and Control-V. On a Mac, that would be Command-C, Command-V. All right, and depending on the state that you want, if I check this, that means the light will be on, and then when I walk in the room, it will turn off. Okay, so now we need to add some blueprint functionality to the trigger itself. So let's go back here and look for our trigger. Here's our trigger volume. Let's give it a better name. All right, so I'm just going to call it light switch. And then volume is appropriate. Okay. All right, so now with the light switch volume selected, I'm going to go in here and right-click, and I'm going to check content sensitive again. So this basically just means it's specific to what we have selected. And so now what I want to do is come up here and say add event for the light switch volume. Open that up. I want to add a collision. All right, and so we want to add an on actor to begin overlap. All right, we'll put that right there. I'm going to zoom out a little, make a little space here. Okay, so that's on actor, begin overlap. And I'm going to connect the execution nodes to that with the function set visibility. All right, I'm going to do the same thing down here while I still have my light switch volume selected. I'm going to right click and add an event for my light switch volume. And I want it to be a collision and add on actor end overlap. All right, we have that right there. And again, I'm just going to make a little space here. It needs to be nice and tight. All right, we're going to connect that there. All right, and essentially that's all we're going to do for now. So let's take a look and see if it works. So what we're going to first do is hit the compile switch here, and then basically then that generates the C++ code. So we're just going to hit compile, and it's always a good idea to go ahead and hit save. All right, then we can move this palette out of the way, but we don't have to get rid of it just yet. And come in here and hit play. Okay, and then I can see the light's on, but if I walk in, nothing happens. But if I walk out, it turns off. Okay, walk in, it's on. Walk out, it's off. All right, very cool. All right, so it was a. So let's have it set so it's not on when we get there. All right, so let's do a little. Let's add a few things here and add a node that starts when the game starts. So I'm going to add an event node. So I'm going to say add an event, event begin play. All right, so here's a basic event begin play. So what I want to do is I want to say that when the game starts, that I want to set the visibility to off. So that, and I'm going to connect those two execution nodes together. All right, so then I'm going to compile and save, and then let's go and take a look there. So I go in there, now, see the light's off, no one's home. But then when I go in and I set the trigger, it's on. And when I leave, it's off. And there you have it. And now you are fully aware of how volumes and blueprints essentially work. All right, well, thank you. See you next time.